Welcome. Greetings of peace and love. I'm Reverend Lori Cardona. I'm here with my beloved Goddess Lisa, Reverend Lisa Benton. Together, we're presenting today what we call Mystic Conversations. So Miracles with a Twist comes twice a month to you. The first Thursday is just my interfaith perspective on A Course in Miracles. And on the third Thursday, Reverend Lisa and I get together to discuss a mystic that she has discovered along her spiritual journey that enhances her love and devotion to A Course in Miracles. And today we'll find out more about her choice. But before we do that, we're going to open with some time together in prayer. So let's all take a nice deep breath in together. And when we exhale, we put our hands on our heart. We allow the sound of this bell to be an indicator of our focus. Focusing on the light and the love that enters into our entire energy system, our chakras, our hearts, our souls, our willingness. This time that we choose to wake up, set our intentions for a new day as we pray harder, rise higher, forgive steadily and love readily, as the mystics do. Walk and talk as the mystics do. We pray to be consistently moving in the direction of spiritual intention, spiritual commitment, spiritual discipleship. We give thanks for this time and space in this world, in this life, in these bodies, to be joined heart to heart, soul to soul. We ask that our eyes be blessed so that when we open our eyes to the world today, we see everyone as a brother and as a sister, as a blessing and as an opportunity to be a blessing, to be of service. And let's take another nice deep breath in together. And as we exhale, we open our eyes and enter into this very sacred time together. Hi, Goddess Lisa.
Hello, Rev. Well, pleasure to see you and everybody who's watching. Pleasure to have you here. Today we're going to be talking about Moses. Moses is our mystic today. So for all our intents and purposes and to keep us all in alignment, you and I, as we've mentioned in the past weeks, came up with the definition of mystic as we see them or feel them, in order to keep people understanding what we're talking about, because there's a lot of different ways that people look at mystics. So we believe that a mystic is someone who finds themselves in an ecstatic state of spiritual consciousness and connection to the divine. They come from all walks of life and our religious backgrounds, and sometimes no religion at all. We also believe that a mystic is someone who seeks this divine connection on a regular basis and incorporates spirituality into every aspect of their life.
Yeah, thank you for that definition and for that reminder. Now, speaking of reminders, when you told me you wanted to talk about Moses, I was like blown away by that idea. I thought, wow, what an interesting twist, right? Miracles with a twist and mystic conversations to look at a biblical character. From the Jewish tradition, we have Moses, who sort of sets everything, starts on fire, literally, and it reminded me of a interesting twist that occurred in the development of A Course in Miracles itself. Now, some people don't know the history But there is a background that is not often known and is not often seen from the most typical and most popular book, which is the Foundation for Inner Peace edition, which is the book that I teach from, the Foundation for Inner Peace. And so this is the one that most people are familiar with. However, in 2017, an extended edition came out, and we call it the CE edition, and put out by the Circle of Atonement. Now, it doesn't change the teachings; it expands teachings. So you can see the difference in the size of the books, because there's 45,000 words and sentences that were eliminated and during the editing process that the Circle of Atonement people put back in this book. They also put into this book something called cameos. Now, cameos were sections of Helen Schuckman's stenography book. Remember stenography? Squiggles, and people somehow knew what that meant. Well, she had a section where she wrote conversations that she had with Jesus that had to do with her personal life. So she didn't see them as lessons for the masses. She saw them as, oh, this is an issue I'm having with Bill Thetford, her co-scribe, or with her husband, who she would have, conflicts with, like every marriage, or just friends. And she would have conversations like, oh, I'm not really willing to do all this stuff that you're asking me to do. And they created a separate section called Cameos, where she discusses those inner conflicts that she was having. Now, if anybody is unfamiliar with Helen Schuckman, she is the primary channel for A Course in Miracles material. And then Bill Thetford is the person who transcribed the materials for her. It was originally just a run-on manuscript with no editing, no titles, and they called that the text because it was just on and on without anything to help you see, well, where does this end and where does this start? So along comes editing, process, publishing, and all of that. Now that's like back from 1965 into the early 70s when it was finally published for the general public. 2017 is many years later, and it's reconstructed so that it can be written, can be read clearly. A lot of what was edited was put back. Now, the cameos are really interesting, and I love them because they are so unusual and they're so personal. So when you told me you were going to be looking at Moses, I thought, wasn't there a cameo where Jesus changes Helen's name? And he's having a conversation with her because she's really upset with herself. Because she starts to realize, like all of us do at some point, that, we haven't been the best people all the time. There were things that we've done that maybe we're not as kind as, we didn't rise as high as we wanted to be. We didn't do the things that we wish we could have done better. So she was using those things against herself. And I think we do as well. Like, how can I be a mystic if I've done these things that maybe some people are still holding against me, or maybe I'm holding them against myself? Who am I to think that I can rise so high, to hear the voice of God and to speak the voice of kindness and compassion when I myself am not even being kind and compassionate to myself, or maybe at times I haven't been. And so he's having a conversation with her, and he says, you can no longer hold, I need you to be able to do the work that is needed in this world, which is to be a voice of love, which is to be seeing yourself as the true channel, as I see you. And if we cannot clean out the muddied, unpleasant thoughts we have of ourselves, how are we going to be pure channels? But the Course in Miracles says, for miracles to occur, purification is needed first. It doesn't mean that we have to be pure and unadulterated channels who never did anything wrong. It means we have to purify our minds. We have to purify our minds of the unforgiveness, the things that we hold against ourselves and others. That's the purification. And once that purification occurs, we can say, oh, you know what? Yeah, I can rise. I can forgive myself in others. I can love steadily. That's what he told her about her husband. He was like always complaining about him. And she, how am I supposed to love this man? He said, just love him steadily. That's where I got the idea. Love steadily.
Wow.
Just be steady. Just be steady and consistent in your ability, in your willingness, even in your struggle to love, to continuously being a presence of love. Just trust the process. The Course also tells us, trust above all things now. And I know that's an important part of all of it, because we get tripped up by things that seem to be obstacles to love. The greatest obstacle to love is our own thoughts, our own inability to find healing and forgiveness within ourselves. So in this cameo, when you told me about Moses, I said, wait a minute, let's go back. That section where he's telling her, I need you. Know that you have, I know you had hardened heart, a harsh heart. I know you hated, but that's not who you are now. Who you are now is who you used to be. What does that mean? He says to her, child of light, you have loved very much. He says, hers. Instead, he changes her name from Helen to Urza. And she gets kind of tripped up like that. Like, what? Why is he calling her? And so the definition here in this edition in Cameo 3, Robert Perry, who was one of the main editors, explains to us, Urza means help or helper. It also can be said to be called God's helper. Interestingly, Jesus here not only explains to Helen several times that she can be a helper, he also calls her Urza. Urza was a Jewish scribe and priest who has been called a second Moses, not very well known. He led 5,000 Jews back from exile. So Moses sent them to safety. Urza brings them back to the place that they had escaped. He reconstitutes the Jewish community based on strict observation and learned interpretation of the Torah. Jesus' message here to Helen is that she can now express her true self, her real self, not the one that she sees ornery and grumpy. And there, listen, anybody who knew her in the real world said she was ornery and grumpy.
Crabby.
She didn't want to do this. She was like, I am writing this down because I'm compelled to do it, but I don't have to like it. And he's telling her, you once did. You were filled with love. You were filled with light, and you can be now. You get out of your own way. That's us. We have to get out of our own way. He implies that in this life, Helen is to surrender to God's will in order to enjoy a high level of communication. How holy it is that a lifetime seems to be vanished into the distant past due to blotted out by an interval of darkness. So whenever we think we've been through an interval of darkness, we think that's the end, that defines me. And he's saying it doesn't define you. It's getting through it. It's getting past it. It's rising above it that reminds you that you are the light, that you carry the light, that you can bring the light out into the world and to others. And so he reminds her that the light she expressed in her life as Urza is the light that she can now rise to and embrace and share with others. All obstacles to reuniting with that light can disappear. And we all can forget. She can forget everything else and just remember the light, because the light is all that remains. It remains when we move through the obstacles that we ourselves construct against love's presence. And it just so happens that the Course, back to the Blue Book, the Course consistently reminds us that the purpose of all this study, the purpose of whether it's A Course in Miracles or some other mystical path, is to bring the light that you are into everything and anything you do, so that you don't get caught up in the obstacles to peace, the obstacles to love's presence. to get caught up in the interval of darkness. So in the review of, now, if anybody's actually reading the material that's in the workbook, they know that the workbook is often divided by reviews. And in those reviews, we have the opportunity to look deeper into our process of unfolding on the spiritual path and say, where's my resistance? Where am I still having my own issues? And in this review section, the first review section that took place in February, it says the purpose of your learning, the purpose of our learning is to bring quiet with you, heal distress and turmoil. This is not done by avoiding them, but by recognizing that we can bring our peace into them. We embrace any situation in which we are by bringing our peace into it. That is the purpose of learning. Peace is a part of you and requires only that you be there to embrace any situation in which you are. You can finally learn that there is no limit to who you are and that your peace can be anywhere you are. Anywhere you choose to be, you can bring your peace with you. And Helen Schuckman finally, when she got to her later life and stopped, she did not go places to say, hey, I'm Helen, hey, you know, she had, you know, what I did. No, she was like in the background, like, oh, how are other people receiving this? And she finally found her inner peace. She finally found her inner Ezra.
That's great.
Bless her, God bless all of us who are on this path to remember that no matter what we've done, no matter what our interval of darkness, we can rise to the light, be the light, embrace the light, and share the light. And let's see how that ties into your boy. Let's see how we go with Moses.
Well, thank you so much, because so many things I want. It's a good thing that Skype does what it does, because two people can't crosstalk. Only one person can speak at a time, because so many things were coming to my head about Moses as you were speaking. And so it's good that, you know, I can't speak until I can speak. So the thing that resonated, of course, with me is this unconditional trust in God that ultimately results from the encounter.
Yes.
And with Moses, and just as a little preface, Moses is believed by many and not believed by many to have been the author of the Torah, the first 5 books of what many call the Bible or the Old Testament. So we're just going to put that out of the way, but that's there. And he's the little guy who was put in the basket and sent down the Nile, and then we didn't hear anything about him until his encounter with God. And so that's what we're going to talk about right now. And Moses had gone through his life, and ultimately he was at this point where he was working for his father-in-law, and he was shepherding sheep across the desert, and he sees a bush that's on fire, but then realizes this bush, while burning, is not coming apart. It's not, and the flame isn't spreading or whatever. It's just this bush, and he hears Moses, Moses, and knows immediately that this is God. He hears his name called, Moses, Moses. Now, at that time, it's important to know that it was believed that if you heard the voice of God, death, that was death. But Moses said, here I am, and started to walk towards the bush. And I just figure as a person, I just think he must be thinking, oh boy, is this my moment? Or, but I've got to go. I've got to go see what's going on with this bush. And then God says to him, Moses, take off your shoes. You are entering holy ground. And Moses takes off his shoes. Again, who knows what he's thinking, but he's drawn to God. He knows it's God. And he at that time, and even now, sometimes people, the symbol of taking off your shoes is you are leaving behind the everything that went on, and you are entering new ground. You are entering a new life. So God is saying to Moses, okay, Moses, this is it. Your life is going to change. And he says, I've heard the Israelites crying. I've heard your people. You're gonna lead them out of Egypt. And Moses is like, excuse me, God, maybe you have me confused with someone else, just like Helen. I don't know. I'm Moses. You may notice that I don't speak very well, and I have a real problem getting the words out. So I don't think it's me. God says, trust me. I know who I've got. You are going to lead your people out of Israel into the land of milk and honey, which is the land of prosperity and growth and beauty in Canaan. So again, Moses is like, that's all well and good, God, but it's not me. You got to notice how I speak. And God said, well, you got a brother, so he speaks well. How about I tell you, and you tell him, you guys go off, and you are going to lead your people out of Israel. Well, all kinds of things took place, and we know about the 40 years in the desert and all that kind of stuff. But in the end, Moses leads the people out of Egypt into the promised land, into the land of milk and honey. And the whole thing is so much like Helen. It's like God said, Jesus said, trust me. Don't get involved in all the stuff that's going to come along. And stuff is going to come along.
Yes.
You trust me, and I've got you covered. I am here to bring peace, love, joy. That's what I'm here about. So trust me. Moses trusts him. Anybody who chooses to read Exodus can find out the ins and outs and ups and downs of the whole story. But the amazing thing was that here's a man walking his sheep, has a verbal encounter with God, and his life is entirely transformed. And everything he thought he could never do or would never do or never even thought about all took place just exactly as it was laid out to be. And if I found for me, the reason that I wanted to talk about Moses was because there was such an amazing parallel in trust, in having doubts automatically. And I see that happening in my own life. When I know there's something that I'm to do, I can come up with umpteen reasons why I can't, because it's frightening. It's better to be, better the devil they say. But anyway, so that's our Moses, and that's just the very beginning of the encounter. But it was so transformational, and I do encourage people to read it and give it some thought, and you can take it on a metaphysical level, you can take it on a spiritual, whatever. It's a neat story that I have to admit I avoided like the plague always. I've read the Bible from cover to cover twice. I'm one of those people who says, oh, it's so gross and bloody in the Old Testament, I have to just go right to the New Testament. No more. Moses saved me. Took me to the promised land.
That's great. I laughed when you said you avoided it like the plague, because there's so many plagues mentioned.
Well, we're always plagued with something.
Right. Wow. I was just thinking about how Helen had her own burning bush moment, right? Because she had this dream and she saw this book, but it was in the water. But it's interesting because we can think of so many things that happen in our lives that are transformative. And it does feel like we're being thrown into the fire or going through the fire. And then we decide how we're going to rise out of that fire, be bitter or be better, be Moses, be like Moses.
Yeah.
do. So yeah, we have our own burning bush experiences that bring us to this opportunity to really see what we're made of. Because, as you said, he was shy. He was not someone who was comfortable with his own speech. Which actually I had a stuttering issue at one point in my life, and I have struggled, I struggled with that. And our current president has a stuttering issue.
Mhm.
And it's interesting how, we can perhaps use those things that are problematic as reasons not to move forward and to hide behind them. And as the course is continuously telling us, those are our obstacles to love's presence. And so we continuously come back to that reminder. I'm not going to use this to stop me. I mean, Moses could have turned around and run, oh, bush is burning, let's get out of here. So I love that. Thank you for giving us a mystic's perspective. I see in Moses as a mystic.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And who'd have thought it, really? I mean, and it was just something that came to me, like it was supposed to, and the connection and everything. And it brought me back to the Old Testament, which was a good thing too. It really is, because I saw it from a course perspective. I was reading it and having studied the course, as long as I have. And so it was just really a gift. This is what we do is a gift to me, and I hope it is to others, but it is to me as I study and learn and listen. So, and I'm not always the best listener either.
We all have those aspects of ourselves, and so we learn. Learning to listen is a skill and an art in and of itself. It's a learning curve. So I just want to remind everybody that we post this conversation on YouTube at my YouTube channel, which is Rev Lori Cardona /Miracles with a Twist, and also on all our Facebook pages. So please comment, share, like, but truly, if you have any more questions about Moses, Gotti Lisa will be putting links to the references she made so that we can dig deeper and look further. And next month, we have a Hindu poet and mystic by the name of Mirabai that you've chosen. I'm really looking forward to that. And that will be on Thursday, April 18th. So thank you again for this opportunity to have these mystic conversations and to remind ourselves that we can walk through that path of life. We're just regular people facing that burning bush and then making some decisions as to how we allow our lives to move forward as a result. So thank you, Gotti Lisa.
Thank you. And I would like, and thank you for for the prayer I'm going to read too. I'd like everyone to know that this is a prayer. It's a song that is very dear to me. It was very dear to me the first time I heard it as a young person in church. And then it was the song that we sang at our ordination, and Sacred Journey Interfaith Seminary, every class sings this song. There is not a doubt in my mind that it comes from Exodus, from Moses' experience. And I would like to share the first verse and the chorus as our closing prayer today. It's I, the Lord of sea and sky, I have heard my people cry. All who dwell in dark and sin, my hand will save. I who made the stars of night, I will make their darkness bright. Who will bear the light to them? Whom shall I send? Here I am, Lord. Is it I, Lord? I have heard you calling in the night. I will go, Lord, if you lead me. I will hold your people in my heart.
This touches my heart. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So we'll see you April 18th. Looking forward to that. Looking forward to hearing about the poet mystic Mirabai. Thanks again for today, and God bless you.
God bless you.